Welcome back to Co-Work Radio here on KZSB 1290 AM. I'm Catherine Raymock.
And I'm Jane Walker-Wood.
And we have one of our favorite segments and people here, UCSB Professor and business author John Greathouse. To answer your questions, you can go to coworkradio.com to find out how you could submit your questions, or directly to AskJohn at coworkradio.com. And you can also listen on iTunes, iHeart, and YouTube, just as a reminder. John, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Good. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, John, thanks. We got a question this week from Todd. He wrote in, he said, I just started a new business with a friend, and we are trying to decide between a partnership and an LLC. He's very confused. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a little concerned because I think Todd might be reading my emails, because I am literally, I'm not kidding, and my partner Ben will know this is true. I'm looking at the same issue. So I have a partner that I co-founded a business with, and we sold it in 2012, and we're going to work together again. And we were debating not so much partnership versus LLC, but we were looking at LLC versus S Corp, and with all the new tax laws, kind of how that might impact us. So, but I'm prepared and happy to talk about partnership versus LLC, because many of the issues are the same. I've set up several LLCs. I don't want to promote just one company, but LegalZoom is who I use. There's others you can use. You don't necessarily need to have a lawyer draw up the foundational paperwork for an LLC, although you want to be very careful on. There's a section of it where you're specifying, choosing an exhibit to the primary document, where you're specifying who's going to do what and what the responsibilities are between the members of the LLC. You want that reviewed by a lawyer, and how you're breaking up the units. But let's talk about the difference between LLC and partnership and a bit broader.
When you say LLC, are we talking an S Corp or just a limited liability corporation?
I'm not sure what Todd was referring to here. I would assume a limited liability corporation and not an S Corp or a C Corp, because those are different. I could talk a little bit about those as well, just so we can make sure we answer Todd's question.
I don't think Todd's making a lot of money yet, so he might be an S Corp.
Yes, but so let's talk about partnership versus LLC, and then I'll mention what an S Corp or C Corp could also add to that. The tax treatment of a partnership and an LLC are essentially the same. An LLC is what's called a pass-through organizational structure, which means any of the revenue or loss that's generated by the entity is passed through to the individuals that are part of the LLC, just like they would be in a partnership. The main differences are LLC allows you to take on capital in a bit more robust fashion. It's still not the best vehicle if you're going to take on venture capital or investor capital, but it's better than a partnership. Probably the most important one is the liability component, and it's even in the name, limited liability corporation. Partnerships, your personal assets are at risk in your business. So let's say, for instance, you had a driver. Let's say you have a partnership and you had a delivery person, and that delivery person unfortunately had a mishap on the road and somebody was injured. You personally would be liable for that other person's injury. So you might have to sell your house, you might have to sell your business. They could go after your personal assets.
Why would someone want a partnership?
Yeah, now they have these LLPs, so limited liability partnerships have been established just for that reason. Back in the old days, it was a very simple thing to set up. It's a handshake. It's like we're in business, 50-50. Oh, okay. It's a really easy thing to dissolve. It's an easy thing to start. I think people were less litigious years ago, and so the being sued errantly was probably less likely, whereas now it isn't. So that was probably part of it. It's a lot cheaper to set up a partnership than it is an LLC. When you set up an LLC, you have state fees you have to pay every year. $800 in California is the minimum. You have certain filing requirements. You have to file a tax return for the LLC, so it's not free, whereas a partnership, you don't have to do those things. I'll talk a little bit about S Corp, C Corp. So they're going to take you up a little bit more expensive. There's certain guidelines. You have to have bylaws. You have to have meetings. You have to have shareholder consents, things like that. But the big advantage with an S Corp or C Corp is the ability to divvy up ownership. LLCs, you get units. You don't get shares. And it's hard to really divvy up ownership of an LLC. It's typically only going to be a handful of people. If you have employees and you want to give them part of the company, which I advise all entrepreneurs to do. If you're starting a business, give ownership to your employees. It's difficult to do with an LLC.
So I have to ask you, because you mentioned you're looking at doing one or the other. Can you tell us what you're working on?
Well, the business.
Yeah.
Sure. It's not super exciting. It's a online digital agency that similar to what we did before. So we worked with companies, a number of them in towns, Stamps.com, and we were very, very big partners with Commission Junction in town, and we were helping companies make money online, and we do it on a rev share basis. So when they make money, we make money, as opposed to just charging them fees. So it's basically we're an adjunct member of their marketing team. We're out there helping them sell their product.
And have you decided which way you're going yet?
You know, it's interesting. I haven't. My friend was on vacation, so my partner was on vacation. I sent him an email on Thursday, and he said, I'm in Cancun, and I'll look at it when I get back. And I said, you shouldn't even have looked at it yet. But
now with the new tax plan,
do
do you think that more people will be doing LLCs so they can have more of a tax?
More of the pass-through?
Yeah, so now that people can't write off expenses, certainly in California, with SALT the way we were before.
I don't know. I think you don't want the tax tail wagging the dog. I think you would look at things like, how can you divvy up ownership?
I've never heard that expression.
Sorry.
I like it.
But sometimes I've done it, where I made decisions based on minimizing my tax impact, and it was not the right decision because I saved a small amount of money and then I was, hampered in things I wanted to do. I think you really want to look at, are we going to give employees ownership? Yes or no. If you are, then you probably don't want to do an LLC. What kind of investors are we going to take on? If you're going to take sophisticated investors, they won't invest in an LLC, so that would be a reason to not do it. I think it's those things that would drive it, not the tax treatment.
Yeah, I think that's great. Hey, John, you have a blog. People can find out more about your thinking mind it's johngreathouse.com. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
And spelled exactly how it sounds.
But everyone thinks, G-R-A, what? It's Greathouse, Greathouse.
And I wonder what the origin of that in your family is. Did you ever
Somebody
explore
was probably a wonderful builder.
Yeah.
It's interesting. My dad was into genealogy pre-internet, and he did a lot of research. It was a German gentleman, and it's been anglicized to American, so it was like Grossenhausen.
And was he a builder?
That part we never got.
No, because usually with the European names, that's how it worked. My middle name is Walker, and in fact, my relatives used to walk the sheep. So that was the job.
That's why John. That's why
John was building. You were building great houses.
You didn't pass that gene along to me. But.
That's why Jane can't stop walking.
All right. I love walking.
Hey, we are going to wrap things up for today, but we're going to see you next week. And if people want their questions read on the air, they can go to coworkradio.com. Don't forget John's blog also at johngreathouse.com. And we will see you next week, John.
Great. Thank you so much.
You are listening to KZSB 1290, and we'll be back right after this.